Before there was mainstream country music, there was bluegrass, and today there still is, even if it's not as well known. Think John Denver or the Osborne Brothers, just as a few examples. If you're new to my channel, I'm Laura Youngblood, and welcome to From Laura's Perspective. Every week, I post an interesting, informative video essay on a different topic, many of which revolve around music and the music industry, like today's. I assume that's something you're into, given that you clicked on this video. But even if I assumed wrong, not to worry. I guarantee I have something that's right for you on my channel, so you have no excuse not to subscribe. In today's episode of From Laura's Perspective, we're going to learn all about bluegrass music, the type of music from which the country music people listen to today was born, where it gets its name, where it comes from, what gives the music its unique sounds, and some of the subgenres or varieties it comes in. Now let's get started. Let's start by talking about where the genre got its name. Bluegrass comes from a nickname given to a region in the West Hills of Kentucky in which grass of the pow genus grows rampant. There isn't much evidence to back this up, but many believe that the name bluegrass came about in the 1950s. Moreover, people believe the name was a reference to the 1930s and 40s band the Bluegrass Boys, whose leader Bill Monroe is still referred to today as the father of the bluegrass genre. As such, Monroe's band is considered the original bluegrass band, its definitive vocals and instrumentation considered a model to this day. So now let's talk a little bit about how the genre itself came to be. Bluegrass all started in the Appalachian region, where many Scots-Irish immigrants settled, bringing their musical traditions with them, such as jigs and reels played on the fiddle. Said jigs and reels were then meshed with unaccompanied narrative ballads brought to America from the British Isles. The iconic banjo, frequently heard in bluegrass music, was brought to Appalachia by African American musicians. In spite of this, bluegrass is commonly associated with Caucasian Southerners. In its early days, bluegrass music commonly accompanied traditional Appalachian dance styles such as buck dancing, flat-footing, or clogging. Many classic bluegrass ballads, such as Pretty Sorrow, Pretty Polly, Cuckoo Bird, and House Carpenter, come from England and preserve their narrative ballad tradition, both melodically and lyrically. Developments in audio recording technology helped this genre, which originated in the secluded mountains of Appalachia, spread to more urban parts of the country. To learn more about how technological advances in music streaming technology revolutionized the music industry, check out my recent video, Evolution of Music Streaming Technology, which I've included a link to both in the description and on your end screen. Getting back on topic, bluegrass music has been recorded by professional and amateur musicians alike ever since its inception. Although amateur bluegrass musicians and trends such as parking lot picking practically define the genre, it's professional touring bluegrass artists who have set the direction of the style. Radio stations dedicated to this genre of music have also proved influential in advancing the evolution of the style into distinctive subgenres, which I will discuss near the end of this video. So what kinds of instruments provide bluegrass music with its distinctive sound in the background? The instruments commonly used in bluegrass music originated in rural dance bands, off of which early bluegrass bands were based. What sets bluegrass apart from the mainstream country music that developed out of it is that bluegrass is generally played exclusively on acoustic instruments. Said instruments include the violin or fiddle, 5-string banjo, guitar, mandolin, and double bass. These instruments are often joined by a resonator guitar, also known as a dobro, and sometimes accompanied by a harmonica or Jew's harp. The fiddle was one of the first of these instruments brought to America. It's said to have been brought from Italy and gained popularity throughout America due to its small size and versatility. As uncomfortable as it may be to acknowledge, the banjo has some ties to racism and white supremacy. They were brought to the country by imported African slaves, but white Americans all but erased the banjo's black origins by using them in minstrel shows that lampooned and denigrated black people. Before the Civil War, people played the banjo with 2 fingers in a style known as clawhammer. However, banjoist Earl Scruggs popularized the playing style more commonly used in bluegrass today, which uses 3 fingers. When it comes to the many instruments in bluegrass music, the guitar is the star of the show. The guitar maintains the rhythm and movement of sound all throughout the song, especially when the other instruments are taking breaks. In early bluegrass music, guitarists such as Lester Flatt used a thumb pick and finger pick. But today, most bluegrass guitarists play in a style called flat picking. Bassists almost always play pizzicato, occasionally adopting the slap style to accentuate the beat. A bluegrass bass line is generally a rhythmic alternation between the root and fifth of each chord, with occasional walking bass excursions. To this day, there's much debate as to whether the correct way to play bluegrass is the traditional guitar, fiddle, mandolin, banjo, and bass used by Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys, or to embrace the evolution of the genre with new grass music that includes instruments such as accordion, piano, auto harp, and electric guitar. But more on that later. Now let's talk about the distinctive way bluegrass music is sung. Like many genres of music, bluegrass is set apart not only by specific instrumentation, but by a unique style of singing. Said singing style can be best described as a high, lonesome sound consisting of a 2 to 4 part harmony, with the highest voice being relatively dissonant or modal. Commonly, the ordering and layering of vocal harmony is called the stack. A standard stack has a baritone voice at the bottom, the lead in the middle singing the main melody, and a tenor at the top, although stacks can be altered, especially if a female voice is included. Artists who've deviated from this traditional stack include Alison Krauss and the Union Station, the Stanley Brothers, the Osborne Brothers, and Flatt and Scruggs. So what are bluegrass songs about, generally speaking? Like in mainstream country music, the lyrics of bluegrass songs tell the stories of those from whence it came. That is, Central Appalachia and other parts of rural America. These include stories of alcoholism, poverty, and lost love, but also include some more overt political and social messages from those suffering as a result of widespread issues throughout Central Appalachia, such as lack of access to financial resources and the greed and corruption of the coal mining industry. The railroading industry has also been a theme in bluegrass songs, with one of the most notable examples being Wreck of the Old 97 and 9-Pound Hammer. Last but not least, let's talk about the 2 main subgenres of bluegrass music. As I've mentioned throughout this video, the model for traditional bluegrass music came from Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys in the 1940s. Traditional bluegrass musicians play folk songs, tunes with simple traditional chord progressions, exclusively on acoustic instruments, though it is common practice to mic acoustic instruments during stage performances before larger audiences. In most traditional bluegrass bands, the guitar rarely takes the lead, instead acting as a rhythm instrument. Melodies and lyrics tend to be simple, often in the key of G, and a 1-4-5 chord pattern is common. In traditional bluegrass, instrumental breaks are typically short and played between sections of a song, conventionally originating as a variation on the song's melody. Also common are breakdowns, an instrumental form that features a series of breaks, each played by a different instrument. Particularly since the 1990s, a number of younger groups have attempted to revive the sound and structure of traditional bluegrass, a trend that's been dubbed neo-traditional bluegrass. Progressive bluegrass music, on the other hand, seems to have developed when traditional bluegrass acts performed on the same media as mainstream country music, particularly the Grand Ole Opry. Especially starting in the 1960s, young musicians who weren't from the South often incorporated songs, elements, and instruments from other popular genres, particularly rock and roll. Even traditional banjoist Earl Scruggs showed progressive tendencies since the Foggy Mountain Boys' earliest days, incorporating jazz-inspired banjo and bass duets and complicated chord progressions that progressed beyond the genre's original rigid and conservative structure. If the Bluegrass Boys are the model for traditional bluegrass music, a 1970s band called the New Grass Revival are the model for progressive bluegrass music. The New Grass Revival utilized electric instrumentation alongside songs imported from other genres to great popularity in the 70s and 80s, and the term new grass became synonymous with progressive bluegrass. In recent years, groups like the Punch Brothers, the John Stickley Trio, and Nickel Creek have developed a new form of progressive bluegrass, which includes highly arranged pieces that resembles contemporary classical music played on bluegrass instruments. These bands feature complicated rhythms, chord schemes, and harmonics combined with improvised solos. At the same time, several popular Indian folk rock bands such as the Avett Brothers, Mumford & Sons, and Trampled by Turtles have incorporated rhythmic elements or instrumentation from the bluegrass tradition into their popular music arrangements. It can almost be said that newgrass music is what bridges the gap between bluegrass and mainstream country music. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope this video gave you a good idea as to some of the deepest roots of the country music you listen to today, if you're a country listener. I actually have a whole playlist dedicated to the country genre, which I've included a link to up on your screen. Also on your screen are links to other related content of mine, which you'll definitely want to check out if you like this video. If this was your first time watching a video of mine, I hope it was a warm welcome to my channel and that you're considering subscribing. I really recommend you do, because that red subscribe button is your personal library card to my video essay library. And the more people that get cards to my library, the more my library will be added to.